Hello YouTube, just wanted to do a video on the cleaning a SIG sour. The model today is a SIG P220, and the first thing you want to do is make sure you clear the gun. Open is clear. There's a bunch of videos about disassembling a firearm, especially the SIG. This is no different. Just take it down. This gun is already clean. I'm not going to bore you with the details. Just going to give some quick highlights. The way I like to do it is I don't like the CLP or the one size fits all. I like the solvent. Preferably I like hops. Get it from Walmart. It's like $2-3 for the bottle, and a lot of Q-tips. You don't need much brushes, but a good copper brush or a brass brush, so you don't wear the finish or dent the frame or any of the metal, and a pick. This one was plastic. I have a metal one at home that I prefer, but this one does alright. As long as you have good solvent, a lot of the carbon buildup will break free even with this plastic pick. So what you want to do, you want to dip your Q-tip in the solvent and just apply it liberally. What you want to do is you want to get all the crevices that make a place for carbon buildup, specifically these rails right here. You want to make sure that these are nice and smooth. Otherwise, any carbon buildup in there will actually act as a friction. So you want to get your Q-tip in there. Make sure you get a lot of solvent in there. Make sure that is nice and cleaned out. And don't stop. See how this Q-tip got a little bit. Just don't stop doing it until you come clean. Rubbing those rails. Another thing on the SIG, what I like to do is I like to take the handles, the plastic handles off, and clean on the inside, because a lot of dirt and grime kind of gets down in there. It's not going to damage the gun by any means, but it just makes it nice, especially when you move the decocking lever. It's going to you can get down in there and get the dirt from underneath it, so you don't have any of that grinding sound as you operate the mechanisms of the gun. You just have a click or a nice swift movement, no grinding. So once the frame is done, what I like to do is I like to apply the solvent, get it nice and wet on the solvent, and let it set aside while I take care and disassemble the slide. Completely disassemble it. I start with this, the slide, and I make sure that this is nice and coated with the solvent. Another trouble area on the slide that you want to pay particular attention to is underneath the extractor. Make sure that's good and tight. And this is where the pick comes in, because you want to get any buildup underneath that extractor. And that extractor gets kind of dirty, and so you want to make sure you get all that carbon buildup underneath there. Otherwise, the extractor will not get a good grip on the brass casing. And so you want to make sure that right there gets nice and cleaned out. And then also right here along these edges, just rub it, take your pick and go up and down right there in that crevice. The reason why is because you want any carbon buildup there, would impair the cartridge from seating flush against the back of the frame or the slide and allowing the firing pin to hit the back of the casing. So you want to make sure that the casing sits nice and flush so it has a nice tight fit. Once that's done, make sure I just lube it up or put a whole bunch more solvent on it. Not dripping, just dip your Q-tip in there and just kind of make sure it's nice and wet. One more thing, I like to disassemble the magazines with the SIG. The way you do that is right there. You just press that little button, and then as you press that down, this plastic piece comes forward and your spring comes out, and you can run your swab through there and get it nice and clean. Then I like putting some oil, and I failed to bring my SIG gun oil, but I just went to Walmart and bought this gun oil, and it does alright. I've never had any problems, and I just put a light coat down the rail. Light coat on the inside. Most people make the mistake of adding too much gun oil. Too much gun oil, when the gun actually fires, the gun oil will burn, creating more carbon buildup, and that will actually bind the gun. So what you want to do is make sure that you just have a fine residue of gun oil on that rail and any exposed metal part. And a good way to do that is just take a rag, put a little bit on your finger, and just kind of rub it all over it. And as you can see, it's just a slight film. Nothing, you don't want any drips, but you want to make sure you coat the any metal part with just a little bit of gun oil. Even the exterior, even though it'll eventually wear off, I like putting it on there just to give it a good coat. And metal is actually porous, and so it'll absorb this oil, even though when it looks dry, it'll have that absorbed in it. So now we put the pistol back together. By the way, the guide rod on the SIG 220 is plastic. I know a few people have commented about that in the channels, and I would prefer a metal guide rod, and I'll probably upgrade at one point in time, but I'm not too worried about it right now. I think if SIG had a problem with them failing, they would have done something by now. That plastic guide rod has been part of production for quite some time. Anyway, your pistol is back together. Decock it, and just kind of finish wiping it down. Wipe off the excess oil. Give it a good few racks. Get that gun oil, any of the gun oil that was in there will kind of run off. Anyway, there you have your properly maintained SIG Sauer 220.